Peace family, y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on black. Back once again with another video where we're honoring the legacy, the life and legacy of one of Africa's greatest revolutionaries, Thomas Isidore Noel Sankara, born 21 December 1949 in the then French colony of Upper Volta. Thomas Sankara went from being a great student to a military leader to also being known as Africa's Che Guevara. He was the fifth leader of Burkina Faso, and we're going to touch on just a little bit about why he's one of our greatest African ancestors. First and foremost, Thomas Sankara was unlike most stereotypical military dictators or leaders. He didn't have this grandiose cult of personality. He refused to have his picture plastered around the entire country. As he stated, there are over 7 million Thomas Sankaras, and we all should be honored equally. He also was known for his position on solidarity, in which he sold off the government fleet of Mercedes-Benzes and simply had them driving in Renault 5s, which was the cheapest car sold in Burkina Faso at the time. He also refused to have state officials flying first class. As he stated, if you're flying first class as a coach, you're still going to get there at the same time. But I think one of his most endearing legacies was his advocacy of women's rights. We know many people would argue that people who are Afrocentric, to call us so-called Hotep, so on and so forth, people who are of a Pan-Africanist way of thinking, are misogynistic in nature. Well, Thomas Sankara put that idea to bed as he advocated for women's rights, allowed women and gave women positions in high levels of government, tried to change the culture in terms of focusing on a belief in equality, of course, of men and women in Burkina Faso, and he outlawed female genital mutilation as well as arranged marriages. But that's not all. He also focused on a literacy campaign that led to Burkina Faso being one of the most literate nations in West Africa. He also focused on preventative health care in a immunization campaign that wiped out yellow fever, malaria, and a number of other diseases that were plaguing the people. But I think one of his most endearing qualities was his solidarity with African people in the Western world, where he spoke regularly about the indignities and the poverty that our people in, of course, Haiti were living under due to the heel of the financial burden that we're facing from France. And one of Thomas Sankara's most endearing qualities was his refusal to accept aid from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, or the World Bank. For as he stated, whoever feeds you imposes their will upon you. And he focused and implemented a process of agrarian self-sufficiency in which the people grew and developed their own food, their own farms, their own land, so they did not have to import food from other nations, because he believed this was a form of colonialism, as we became later learned, neo-colonialism. But even more importantly, due to Thomas Sankara's Pan-Africanist ethos, values, and ethics, he was denied an official state visit in the United States, I believe in 1984-85, when Ronald Wilson Reagan, as some people call him, 666, denied him an official state visit at the White House. And as a result, Thomas Sankara, when he was going to speak at the United Nations the next day, stopped in the Black Harlem and spoke at Harriet Tubman Elementary School and told the gatherers at Harriet Tubman Elementary School that for the African revolutionary, my White House is in Harlem. And he told the brothers and sisters that gathered that day to listen to him speak that our issues here in America, fighting anti-Black racism, the remnants of Jim Crowism, and mass incarceration and the crack epidemic, were reminiscent and reflective and connected to the issues that African people are fighting on the continent, that our brothers and sisters in the Caribbean were fighting. And he forged solidarity and told the crowd that anyone who wants to return home, you can return home to Burkina Faso on my dime. And he reaffirmed the solidarity with the Black African world and the Western deaf and decadence of the Western diaspora when he spoke at the United Nations. So Thomas Sankara wasn't someone who simply talked Black in a Black setting, but then talked white or talked green or had this multicultural and nebulous people of color perspective when it came to being out in front of the broader world. Unfortunately, that caused him to be assassinated on October 15, 1987, but his legacy still lives on today. Secondly, I have to mention this because I'll be remiss in my duty, and my son would want to, do some things to me if I didn't mention that Thomas Sankara is my son's favorite Pan-Africanist. And the reason why was because he implemented something known as the pioneer movement. I can recall when my son was much younger, I would always be engaged in different forms of activism, what I like to call I was a blacktivist. And so much of our activism was focused on preventive maintenance rather than simply chasing ambulances, being an alarmist, and responding to issues. But as a result, what ended up taking place was my son said, well, how can I be involved? And so I was doing some research and reading about Thomas Sankara, and one of my elders in the Council of Elders, shout out to Baba Larry Crow, Kwaku Larry Crow, bought me a book on Thomas Sankara for one of my birthdays. And when I'm reading about the book, Thomas Sankara created something known as the Pioneer Youth Movement. And this Pioneer Youth Movement was focused on teaching the Black youth the values necessary to be Black-minded, to have a Pan-Africanist frame of reference, so that when they got older, they would not be used against their own people to the benefit of the white power structure. And so I thought about that, and I implemented something like that with not only my son, but a couple of the brothers and sisters in the community who had children as well. And we even had a Saturday school, Juma Mosey Shule, and where we was able to teach the type of things, but also focus on, of course, traditional things they needed to learn in education. And so I think it's very important, with that being said, that we honor the life and legacy of Thomas Sankara. Once again, as I stated, he was born December 21st, 1949, the 5th president of Burkina Faso, and changed the name of the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, which is known as the land of the upright people. For those of you who don't know, Burkina Faso is a landlocked country, in which is French-speaking landlocked country, in which the capital is Ouagadougou. And so if you get an opportunity, get a chance, please take the time to learn about Africa's Che Guevara, Thomas Sankara. Until next time, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Make sure you share this to all the friends and well-wishers or detractors who want to learn about Africa's Che Guevara, and to know that you can be a strong Black man. You can be an African male, Afro male. You can be someone who's Black-minded, powerful in our speech, our rhetoric, and our action, but also be an advocate for Black women and children. I believe there's space for all of that. Until next time, peace.